Hi, Maria.
Hi, David.
You see me?
I see you. You're by yourself.
I am.
Yeah. So
Usually,
it's been live
go
streamed.
ahead. Oh, go ahead, Maria.
So the meeting is being live streamed.
Great. Well, everybody can see me out in the world. Hello, everyone.
Yes. Alrighty. So I made your call, so I think you're good to go now.
All right. Thanks, Maria.
Perfect. Yes. Let me know
Have
if
a
you
good
need
night.
anything, okay?
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, David, can you hear me?
Six 30, we call the Planning and Community Development Commission to order. Planner, please call the roll.
Okay, thank you, Chair Drystad. Chair Drystad. Commissioner Hamrick.
Present.
Commissioner Schwartz.
Present.
Commissioner Scott.
Here.
Vice Chair Evers.
Present.
Commissioner Cram. Not here. And okay, we do have a quorum, huh?
Yes, now we would be expecting Commissioner Cram, since she's going to report.
That's true. Yeah, she does. She definitely does have an update. So we can change the order of events. It's pretty flexible this evening. As far as item 4, short-term rental, subcommittee update and recap of what's happened thus far, we can wait her time. And I haven't heard that she wasn't planning on attending.
Motion to modify the agenda by moving 4.1 to after 5.1 point.
Save your breath.
Cancel.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay, well,
Look,
let me,
you're up.
Well, not quite
Well,
yet. Oh, man.
Business.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kidding.
is there, do we have the Zoom connected,
Yep, everything is, we are live right now.
and are there other people?
Planner Painter is on and we have a audience member here.
Okay, so is there any audience business? Would you like to speak to the group?
Okay, and I'm Case Barnes. 69. The only thing I really appreciate is when you post your agendas and your meeting times, and according to the website, you have been meeting time for your meetings, you meet all day. So it would have been easier. I mean, we dug through your minutes and found time. Oh, goodness. Okay. And I'm just here to learn about short-term rentals, because I'm thinking I'm on the housing commission. I think I'm going to be represented in them.
Oh, very good.
Okay, thanks for
Good.
coming. What's your name? Can I ask?
What's your name?
Kay Sparks.
Oh, you're Facebook. Are you Gil's wife? Pretty much. Okay.
Okay, just quickly, I'll go to the goals for today, which is, first is to learn about the progress of the short-term rental, subgroup. And then touch on the mayor and administrator's memo about annexation and perhaps give some feedback. And then move on to discuss and make recommendations about zoning overlay for ADUs in the business district. The last thing would be then to learn about the current activities of the planning department. Having said that, then let's move on to the short-term rental subcommittee. What you've been doing.
Okay. All righty, so Neil and Dave and I met on May 10th, and it was really helpful, and we were just really trying to get our arms around what is the issue at hand and what should kind of clarifying our focus a bit more and what are some of the strategies. So it was kind of like basically a big brainstorming session. And it was helpful, and what we kind of came to is that something really important at the very end, which is that, yes, it's important that we look at short-term rentals under the umbrella of we need of the goal of having more affordable. But we're missing a huge piece by not looking at long-term rentals. So long-term rentals are not regulated in the town. There's no licensing for them or anything at this point. Except for accessory dwelling units, which is, kind of like one specific type, but there's lots of long-term rentals out there that are not ADUs in people's homes. Yeah, primarily. So, what we is if the commission would support us to expand our scope to also consider long-term rentals, potentially creating some code for that. And if you guys had a different view of things that we talked about, please speak up.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Scott.
Couple of questions. Does like say the city of Denver, do they normally require you to be licensed to have long-term rentals? Was this something?
The city of Denver?
Well, I'm just saying, I had a condo in the city of Denver for a number of years, and I lived in it, and then we got married and I rented it out and never got a license. I mean, it was.
So
And I
city
just- as part of the benefits, I guess that's where I'm going. Tell me how a license is a benefit and why.
That's something that we need to talk about more. We're not saying like, yes, we want to create code for long-term rentals. I think we're more asking permission to further consider them.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
well, within the subcommittee.
Yeah, I mean, licensing rentals of short-term, long-term, any type, really, all licenses have to do with public safety.
Yeah. as I
There's
say,
a small bit of public safety policy there where it gives you an opportunity to make sure that the spaces that people rent and live in your community, since, renters may be a different type of community that has a little less, I don't know what the word would be. Well, power is one word, yeah, but like representation.
Yeah.
So it gives that chance for the town or the municipality to kind of advocate for that group and make sure they have safe standards for living. Like for instance, Boulder has a long-term rental licensing, very important because of college, right? So, so not all towns do have it, but a lot do. And, there's really small things that they guarantee, like to get a license, you have to have up-to-date smoke detectors in your house. So to get that scope of stuff, it's not really meant to limit much of anything. It's just meant to make things safer.
See that as, I guess, an added benefit, but not the central focus of this. I mean, if you think about affordable housing, like why would we want to consider long-term licenses? Some regulation. One is we don't even know how many long-term rentals are out there. So this would provide a vehicle for that. And two is there a way, I wonder if people did have licenses, like, is there some benefit we could provide that would make them want to make their rentals more affordable? That might be pie in the sky and just a pipe dream, but if you've got this group of people that you know are renting long-term, like, how can we leverage that to promote affordability?
All fair points, Commissioner Brown. And a further one would be for us to establish a full inventory of all of the long-term rentals that we have right now, because we have so many that are unaccounted for. And like Commissioner Evers mentioned, we're not certain what their condition is, what their level of safety is. We all know that there's many different accessory dwelling units throughout Lyons, especially if you walk through the alleys of Lyons, that no one is really aware of what set of safety standards, if any, exist. So it would help with that to have a repository of information. It would also help in a sense that should we establish some sort of fee, that fee could go toward, as you mentioned, maybe furthering affordable housing, encouraging affordable housing by some way. And I don't know how exactly you could do that, but a lot of communities do essentially create a fund for affordable housing predicated upon fees they collect for a whole host of housing or lodging that is in existence within that community. Those fees go into a pool, and then the town can, or the city can pull from that pool and use it to further affordable housing. And I guess the last thing I would mention about this is the Colorado Department of Local Affairs IHOP grant, which the Board of Trustees approved the contract for that last Monday. And our selected consultant is Bohannon Houston Incorporated.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they have a pretty good depth of expertise in this, and including right now working on the Town of Netherlands identical grant. So we're excited to partner with them, and the contract for that is one of their initial objectives for their work product will be to establish just what type of housing we have, and hopefully that will include the level of long-term housing inventory that exists in Lyons right now.
How
So,
will they do that?
great question. I don't know if they're going to do field surveys or if it will be based upon some other metric or way of measuring that. I'm not sure, but it's pretty high in the minds of to have them try to establish what is our base level of housing right now, because outcomes of their whole effort would be to help us innovate in our Lyons Municipal Code language. So without understanding where we are, we won't be able to come up with a structure to determine the future.
So right now ADUs are licensed, like, we determine number of them, so right now in town, based on our.
No, not necessarily.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you do have to apply for it, I should say, our accessory dwelling unit language is by right if it's attached.
Yeah.
But if it's detached, it goes through a conditional use process.
And they're like reported because of that, or
Yeah, we know about the
detached.
very few detached that have come through
But
for
nobody-
conditional use. By right, we wouldn't know. Short-term rentals, on the other hand, have license that has to be renewed annually.
And it's England, okay, because I just, well, and then my question, longer term, well. Like short-term rentals, you know, they can really help you with affordability in this town. I mean, is 1 year enough? I mean, like, if you want to be able to possibly help pay your mortgage in this town, would you want to, I mean, maybe would you want to have a license, like a 5-year license that you could?
So these are all.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah,
That's
yeah.
an example of something that we'd be looking at.
Yeah,
So,
okay, yeah.
yep, looking at both, how can short-term rentals help want to live here to be able to do so, right? So you need a balance of
Yeah,
both.
I was just gonna say, I'm supportive of this subcommittee looking at long-term rentals, because I think like you guys came to the conclusion, you need to look at the whole landscape. Correct. And so the question I have, or just thought, because I have 317 Evans stuck in the back. of my-
yeah.
You know, and so that was less than desire. I haven't been in it. But I suspect it's pretty rough inside. So would you foresee if we went down this path, you know, identifying those type of properties, and maybe there's some code enforcement that needs to take place, because that went on way too many years in
Yeah, 'cause-
substandard living conditions.
Well, I had to go visit during the census fair, because I was a census taker and.
There's a general, I
Yeah,
don't know if it's called a penalty, but there's a general license or ordinance for finding somebody for being out of code. If there's a specific penalty within the code, it's overwritten by the specificity. But there's a general one, and it's a certain amount of dollars per day. So if somebody's out of compliance with the code, they could be fined until they become in compliance. So it gives the town at least some leverage to make a property like that if the town saw it and was aware of it and wanted to try to make it safe and couldn't come to terms with the landowner, they would have some leverage to bring them into compliance.
by the way, a town employee had lived there too, by the way,
Right.
yeah.
But that's, one of the reasons for the licensing is it's not revenue generation. I think that's the wrong way to approach it, even if that is an
Yeah, no,
opportunity to
it's-
bring
It's
affordable housing
Yeah,
things in, but it's more of data we don't have that we could use, so we could be more intelligent about conversations about our housing stock, what are rentals, what are owners. And then also we make safe spaces for our,
yeah, most
which is
likely.
kind
Well,
of
and I would-
bottom line policy stuff.
Yeah, and I would really love there to be a benefit to the homeowner. I mean,
Yeah.
I can hardly believe that the words like, let's maybe create code for long-term rentals have come out of my mouth, right? Like, I hated going through it in Boulder. Like, I went through that transition to where there were none for forever and then there were some. It was rough. So and I have a long-term renter, like, so I can really empathize with the homeowner who's gonna be like, what the heck's in this for me? So like, there's nothing. You're just gonna regulate me and charge me fees? What the heck? So I think if we do this, we have to be very attuned to the homeowners and really keep the spirit of this like in focus. Like if we do this, it's to help figure out how to create more affordable housing here.
There could be a grace period, there for existing rentals to like not have a non-fee license or something like that. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
No, and I was just wanted to tell me today, if you're gonna go buy a residence, you have realtors, you have Zillow, you have lots of, but I see postings all the time on rentals, and it just seems like it's a very informal market. So maybe if there's more awareness, maybe through this consultant, it makes sense. If somebody does come and identify properties, how do we maintain and keep up with that? Maybe it is good timing to keep track of that, but also just to have more of a market, if you will, maybe that'll drive down some prices just from an awareness perspective. Because it seems like most of the stuff is word of mouth.
Yeah, when I rented my. I could reach out to people fast, and when people know about why it's happening, people living in town, that finds is a small community, I don't know. That was like 20 years ago.
Well, for the town, there's already an infrastructure in place for managing short-term rental licenses. So the long-term rental licenses are a very similar process. Same kind of paperwork, same kind of organism. So it's not like we're creating a new infrastructure within town staff to have to, take on a new role that they didn't have. So I don't think it's that big of an ask. I think, but to David's earlier comment, it looks at the entire landscape of rentals in town and allows us to have real value-based proposals around what rentals are and how they're made safe, and not just making it about short-term rentals, which feels disingenuous compared to the whole rental landscape.
Yeah.
I'm in support. I think we need to understand where we're at. So it's a part of the continuum. So important part.
Clarifying question. When we say long-term rentals and have some code associated with long-term rentals, would that then apply to non-conforming ADUs?
Yeah, I would imagine it would apply to non-conforming use, to try to understand, first of all, where they are, And second, how and if they need to be improved upon to bring them up to a certain level of code. Unless you enter into a building permit process, you don't have to upgrade. Need to perform some just general maintenance, even on a unit, like first said in Boulder, the smoke detector or carbon monoxide detector, that could go a long way. As far as the non-conforming status goes, it would be great to understand just how many of those we have. And I know there's many, and it depends on the degree of non-conformity to which you're referring. Like, is it non-conforming in the sense of it's built on the lot line, and so it's non-conforming in that way, or is it non-conforming because it's oversized for our current regulations for ADUs? I don't know. There's a host of different measures by which something could be considered non-conforming, and it'd be good to know what those are. And it would also it would spotlight the areas in town where perhaps we could encourage ADU development. There's parts of town that could use ADUs that don't have them. And I guess a further thought to that would be limiting, because presently, at least under how the accessory dwelling unit code is written, you can't have more than one ADU. And there's several places that I'm aware of that have more than one ADU. So, that would be used to help us understand, who's infringing upon that type of non-conformity as well.
Or proposing further changes to our code that would allow for it if that's something we needed to allow for.
Absolutely true. And that could be a rezoning scenario. If our present zoning code is inadequate to respond to the level of accessory dwelling units that could be accommodated in Lyons, then maybe that's something that needs to happen. I did see an interesting story today in the Washington Post about the success of ADUs in California, and how they actually have made a dent in housing prices. So there's certainly truth behind the push for affordability and accessory dwelling units. Again, though, I guess the last thing, accessory dwelling units only hit one portion of the affordability spectrum because they are rentals by nature. It doesn't lift us out of the rental equation and move people toward ownership. So as much as you want to, ADUs can be encouraged, there's other methods that we need to contemplate for affordability and attainability in housing.
The code that we're contemplating here provide the power to require detectors, fire detectors.
Yeah.
And, just that much. Not to turn into a bureaucracy, but just from a safety perspective.
Yeah.
Access to ventilation in a wet space would be another one, right? So a bath fan or a window in a bathroom would be a really easy one to make something safe away from mold. We can get into that, but really basic stuff.
Can I just, can I ask the audience member if she has?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
I was just saying, can I raise my hand?
Oh,
Two things, this is just a piece of information. The Housing Commission last year, when you put your budget together and request any money you want from the town, requested that the landlords to apply to for things that they need to improve, the kinds of stuff, but that they could borrow the money, pay it back. It would be a revolving fund for landlords to be able to do those kinds of safety things, and you have to legal under this. That, of course, didn't go anywhere because of the budget crunch. The other thing I just wanted you to be aware of, and I know you guys are aware of it, is in terms of the rental market between now and mid-September. and help take in the applications. Not all those folks are in Lions or the Lion. Substandard housing. But some are in just regular old rentals and they would like to have much better house, lower rent. Interesting to see come October 1st or whenever it is, these open up. If the rental market changed in it. It probably is not enough since we lost 100 units in the flood, but it's gotta be improvement.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Is there any other discussion on that topic? If not, thank you very much. That was very interesting. Okay,
So do we do have the go ahead then to go ahead and explore the longer term as well?
are there any objections?
Just real quick, does Longmont have a long-term rental licensing? Is Boulder's, so Boulder has
I
a,
don't know.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure, but
We looked at it, we looked at it.
But I mean, long-term, like licensing, long-term rental licensing.
One of our next report out, we'll report out towns nearby that also have long-term.
Yeah,
licensing,
okay,
just to get a perspective.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Some research to be done. Okay, then, let's move on to the public workshop. The first item there is the mayor and town administrator's memo about the benefits of, annexing into Lions. Did everybody have a chance to go through that?
The sales pitch.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, she did bring up,
Yeah,
one thing, I think she, lines in particular, okay, no, no, I was thinking. Was that? Oh, was that? Yeah, people, you've already talked about like people. Yeah, you usually have more, you're more reliable public infrastructure like water and sewer, and that's why I asked that question about the septic tanks last time, so I know that's why somebody had moved there.
the agenda item said provide feedback.
Yeah,
Well, it was provide the information. When I looked at it, I thought there might be a little feedback we could give.
Yeah, that would be great. This is, as Commissioner Hamrick said, kind of like almost like a circular on why you want to annex. Come on, join the Lions party.
yeah, well, also, another thing, like, I always think utilities, not just, and I don't know, didn't anything about like, say, like high-speed internet, or is that hard to get outside of town? I don't know, I mean, things like that. Yeah, to say, it's really important, yeah, okay, thank you.
I have crappy internet and I live in town.
Yes, okay, well, that's my point, is like, your business, that's really important. And
It doesn't really, there's not a close association between fast internet and internet.
yeah, okay, yeah, I mean,
Move along on with you.
yeah, exactly, okay, I mean, some things like that are, like, when you talk about, yeah.
So this question came about during or stemming from our last PCBC meeting. And during the agenda setting session, Chair Dresta had kind of an inquiry on some of the other facets of annexing. So Town Administrator Simonson provided this document. Like, why would you want to annex? Now, this doesn't have a large relationship or any relationship at all to the Martin parcel. Martin parcel is a town-owned piece of land, so we're not telling the owners of the Martin parcel, hey, guess what? You can join the PCVC now, because that would be squirrels. Yeah, certainly happy to take down any comments, or if you just want to email me some thoughts, if you think of things after this. Yeah.
Well, the big one missing, I think, is the zoning flexibility that you cannot have in the county, assuming that you're annexed from the county into the town. The town has so many more uses that are available for zoning. And flexibility and nimbleness to be able to potentially even change zoning to suit the needs of a developer and an owner. And that's kind of number one. Maybe utilities is number one and that's number two, but they're 1A, 1B maybe.
I concur. Yeah, it's a big,
Issue.
I have,
Oh, sorry, Brian.
I have some language for that.
Oh, cool. I'm sorry to jump in.
Absolutely agree that that was the single most outstanding thing missing. And it's one of the most important, I think. And the term I had is more flexible, community-oriented land use opportunities.
that's a great, can you email that to me? That's a great term.
Yeah.
Great for turn of phrase. Yeah, and that's probably the largest reason. I would say it's above everything, anything else, even above like, oh yeah, we have our own municipal utilities, but not so much that. We have the ability to handle a particular case that Boulder County would never entertain.
Right.
That's one reason why Shady Lane is, has been on the radar for annexing into the town. If we do, and we may not, but we allow for much more flexibility and can pivot quicker. And that parlays into the previous discussion of accessory dwelling units. Boulder County doesn't even allow accessory dwelling units except for familial reasons. If you have a family member you're taking care of outside of that, you can't.
Mother-in-law, yeah.
Also agriculture, not that it matters, but yeah.
Yeah.
Another one though, aren't the mill levies quite a bit lower in town Alliance than they are in the county as well, the property tax?
Our property tax is lower than other municipalities.
Is it lower than county?
County by default is lower.
Take that, strike it from the record.
Yeah, because we have a slightly higher tax rate. However, it's lower than Boulder, it's lower than Longmont.
Yeah, that's fine. I thought.
Yeah, I want line item by line item for each mill levy in.
Yeah.
If you live in town, you have one more line item than you do if you're unincorporated.
Library.
No, the library stuff. I just took Apple Valley versus in town.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's the town of Lyons, which is not insignificant. I mean, it's. I forget what the mill levy.
Never mind, strike that.
It's a couple grand a year, or 1,500. depends on the
Some
property.
people that could really matter.
Yeah.
You could.
And the other thing,
Yeah.
the bigger issue, when we talk about the financial difference of being in the town or not, is the sales tax.
Yeah.
Because if you go to like Apple Valley, you save 2% off the sales tax, I believe. So if you buy a big ticket item, a new car or something, that amounts to thousands of dollars. So,
Just because you live in Apple Valley?
no, it's cheaper in Apple, meaning if you're in unincorporated, which Apple Valley is.
No, that means the dealerships say have to be in Apple Valley. No, what? No.
Saying if you live in unincorporated Boulder County, sales tax is quite a bit.
Yeah, okay.
For large purchase items. Yeah. Right, because sales tax is typically from
Point
a
of sale.
Location. of
brick and
sale.
mortar sale.
Yeah,
But big ticket items, if you're renovating a house or buying a car,
yeah.
it's significant.
Another thing that always, I don't know, maybe. I read kind of thing. I mean, if you're a business, you want a good, reliable, snow access to your businesses. I don't know if that's, I know that's. A small item that could be included. I don't know if that. Anything related to businesses, making business easier or accessing them for.
Are there any other items that we feel are missing or could be represented better in the list? And as Planner Kennedy said, if you have an idea about one, you can email him.
There were a couple other questions that stemmed from our PCDC agenda setting
Yes.
meeting.
Let's move on to that because I think there was a little bit of a sense that the meeting was not as robust overall. I think the presentation was great, but the meeting was not necessarily as robust as some expected. In terms of guidance from the Board of Trustees, interaction between the PCDC members and the board, it was very limited. It seemed to be, kind of cut off. I think there's some sympathy because they just gone through a fairly intense 3-hour meeting, but I think there were some comments.
I think that's enough.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, David.
Oh, yeah, no, I just to echo what Barney said, I was very frustrated at the last meeting we had, the joint meeting with the Board of Trustees. And it was because there really wasn't any good discussion. I was hoping to walk out that night of having dialogue with the trustees and understand where each one of them may be leaning from an annexation standpoint. So that said, I mean, I appreciate they just sat through 3 hours talking Honeywell, so there, but it was clear. I mean, Holly cut off a lot of conversation, I felt like, so. And I'll be glad to color that. But no, I thought it was a good opportunity. So the point, I think the message there is when we have a joint meeting, let's not schedule something beforehand, because I think it would have been a great opportunity to have some dialogue and talk about the pros and cons of annexation. And one of the things I'd like to, and I'll shut up there, but really talk about the financial aspects. That's my big concern about annexation and what it costs this town. And so I just, hopefully in the future, we can plan those meetings with a little more, dialogue.
No, well,
Yes, your presentation was good, but I was hopefully we get into some give and take.
yeah, I think it was generally understood that maybe needed underlined that was a presentation of the annexation things that are possible, not even probable, not even, desirable. It was that were possible in terms of their situation and the fact, has there been dialogue or not? And that's what it was. It was not this is our plan and all we need to do is prioritize them and start after. It's not that. It's just the list of ones that are possibilities because of the situation and the fact that there's been at least some dialogue, even if it's just internal within town. But I found it very interesting because some of the possibilities were ones I was not even aware of. And useful to think because it gave examples of what might be there and what you might have to consider if the annexation question comes up.
So the most surprising one was that one property of.
I was very surprised.
It's like it's a very expensive house.
But let's face it, I mean, I hate to be cynical here, but annexation is really about it's changing property values and maximizing the return to the owner. So I don't blame them for doing that. I look at the same thing, but that to me is the ulterior motive in most of these. But I do agree, Barney. I think it'd be good to go through those that were presented and kind of put them in different buckets because some have different value. Some were in my mind just homeowners wanted to maximize the saleability. Which again, I don't blame them, but that's it, then I get into the why should the town incur a ton of capital expense of putting in new utilities and all that. Anyway, so that's what I'm interested in, the financial aspect of this, because they seem like a lot of these seem like losers from a financial perspective to the town. And I don't know the town can be, I mean, they're gonna have to float bonds to do this. And do you really want to use bonding capacity to do these when there's so many other things that the town's not paving streets or other things where you can spend money? So that's the conversation I was hoping to get into with the Board of Trustees.
Right. I appreciate this. Yeah, there was certainly room for more dialogue, and I think I'll try to coordinate better for the second edition of this in the fall. Just so happened that this Honeywell thing, I didn't realize that was happening. I would say that, some of the ideas for potential annexations are, not necessarily based in a financial reality. It's more a optimum land use scenario, and there's reasons to annex that don't have to do with finances, but have to do with just a better framework for potential land use. So we'll see what materializes during the IGA negotiations as they continue. And I'm essentially looking for maximizing our return on investment during the IGA negotiation. Like, what areas can we demonstrate to Boulder County that these should be within our sphere of influence, whether or not we want to annex those lands, but leave them open to the possibility that they could be annexed, and not go to them with, we have one or two places. I'm thinking just bigger picture. We don't know what could take place in the next 5, 10, 20 years that this IGA, and I don't know how long this IGA is going to last. That's another interesting facet of this. The previous one was 10 years. And I don't know if this one will be. I haven't heard anything saying that. During the first meeting that we had with Boulder County staff, it made it seem as if this IGA may be longer than 10 years. They probably don't like renegotiating. So, yeah.
And just so I understand what the IGA, because I kind of look at that as, if we're looking in the lens of annexation, then that just gives you better capability to annex versus, so it's kind of like the way we drew the 3 mile plan, right?
Yep.
We drew it as big as we could, just to not leave anything out. So no different. It seems that the strategic intent of the IGA would then be put as much in there as possible, but then we would come back from an annexation and consider each one on its own merit, both the benefits to the town as well as the cost.
Yep. Yep. And, in the end, annexations have to be approved by voters.
Right.
So we could have the greatest opportunity in front of us and the voters could turn it down. Unless we amend the Lyons Municipal Code. So there's
Except for properties under 10 acres in the
in
eastern
the
corridor.
Eastern Corridor. Yeah,
Have you looked at the size of the properties in the eastern corridor
that would be potentially within our,
that are over 10 acres?
there's a few.
No, there isn't.
Well, there's the big one is the Lucan.
The Lucan property, yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
If we start,
Look at it as considered
Get-
eastern corridor or.
Yeah.
we go further, if we start looking at properties further, then we would get into over 10 acres, but.
Yeah.
But that,
The immediate area around the intersection of 36 and
Right.
66, no.
so
But Cemex,
the wording of the citizen vote was very specifically written that way, because then that whole area would be able to be.
right?
In effect, what it said is that the citizens of town agreed that that's where we're annex.
Yeah.
So instead of having individual votes for every. Right. Okay, Commissioner Schwartz, did you have a comment? You had your hand up over.
Questions that, I was intending to address tonight was who pays for annexation infrastructure? And that's complicated because there are potential rationale or there are potential areas that present a rationale for annexing, even though the infrastructure costs would be borne by the town of Lyons. And those are areas specifically we're thinking of the north planning portion of the town, so the Boone parcel. And the Connor parcel and some parcels there, that it may be in the benefit of the town to annex, even if development doesn't happen, for water redundancy purposes, for wildland firefighting purposes. And even other reasons that people have mentioned, such as a ring trail around the north portion of town. So that gets into, do we want to float a bond? I did ask Administrator Simonson about that, and she wasn't aware of an example where we floated a bond for an annexation, but that's not to say it couldn't happen. You know, if it was really within the town's best interest to do so, of course we could. Maybe the municipalities do that. We would just have to contemplate, is it worth it to annex and amortize the cost of this over the coming decades?
Okay.
Came back to.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for me, I think connecting these decisions to the comprehensive plan and then looking to trustees about how the projects are prioritized amongst all the other work that's involved in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, one of the big considerations there is staff time. We don't have a 20-member
Yeah.
planning staff.
We don't.
Yeah. So where are those other 18 people? And the expense to the town that's unavoidable in terms of legal fees and potentially other fees.
Yeah.
So then the question starts to become, in what order do you take these kinds of things?
Like you're in town.
Yes. Yep.
I have a question. Do you think it's possible annexations, like, are there like federal grants and state grant or state grants or something that might be like my thing is like, maybe you'd want an annexation, like, maybe you wouldn't want to convert some people's properties from septic to sewer. Isn't that more sanitary, more environmentally?
Yeah, it's actually a good question, and there's one potential annexation that meets that. It's the area of Kruger Road to the kind of northwest of Lyons. So that would be
That could be available, certain environmental protection and,
right.
That's something it's so bad.
We have to examine that a bit further, but there has been interest expressed by the residents there and potentially annexing.
And you could start on properties already in the town.
There you go. Blast that rock up the hill.
Yeah, he doesn't have a.
So
He doesn't have a town water.
the other annexation item, I don't know, want to move on, Chair Drysdale, was any specific discussion on the Martin parcel, which was mentioned during our BCDC agenda setting.
Yeah, we can talk about that, but let's limit the discussion to a few minutes so that we have adequate time to talk about the overlay and get your report on your activity.
Sounds great. Okay.
I have one specific comment on the Martin parcel. So there was kind of, I don't know, sort of a hanging idea that we should all agree to go to the Dr. Bob documents for the Martin parcel design or the consideration for access points and stuff like that. And I looked a little closer at a lot of those park designs and the connections between the parklets and the properties. And we have not been using that document as a guiding principle, at least with the multi-use path through the Confluence neighborhood to connect the school to the creek. And I don't think we should hold it wholly. I don't think we should look at it and consider it as a guiding document. I think we could reference it, we could educate ourselves. That's all smart and good, but I don't think we should follow the design principle that's in that document. It doesn't make sense.
Why?
There is no connection established to what is the neighborhood road that's contentious? 66 or something.
69.
69. There's no connection there. And there's actually like a whole paragraph about how there shouldn't be a connection there, but not why there shouldn't be a connection there. And the whole thing just kind of stinks of like political, like kind of phillies.
Being like,
Yeah.
they will fight, people will fight to the,
There's very little like
Yeah.
detail on the map, except for in that corner, there's like, there's some like specific plantings to like block a view, and so it's just weird. And it also is like a ring that's this kind of, I don't know, it doesn't, I don't think it makes sense. And then if you look at the design of the parklets to the north, again, the Safe Path School, the entire design of that was supposed to be on the west side of the road so that it connected all the buyout properties as little parklets. And it was actually implemented on the east side of the road, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but now you have these floating islands of properties that don't make any sense. So I think we've already essentially thrown that document out when we consider our design. So I don't think now's the time to dust it off for the Martin parcel. Because I really do think the only, and I'll get off my high horse, but I do think one of the only real leverage points we have with this property is to make the route from Picture Rock Trailhead to the town of Lyons safer for people who walk and bike and run there. And that's really about the only thing that this property seems to serve us, other than keeping it clear of limbs so it doesn't burn and making sure that it floods appropriately. But for actual recreational purposes, I can't find another use other than to make a safer route that doesn't involve pedestrian traffic on Highway 7, which doesn't have room for pedestrian traffic. And
Yeah, just a comment about the Dr. Bob document. It was not looked at as being that high in the voted upon. It was not as thorough or intense, or it did seem to have a lot of resulting from pushback involved. I recall that myself. And I think when we're looking at the Mark parcel, you had mentioned one of the possibilities being taking advantage of the county road extension that goes all the way to the river, I believe, to the north, to work something with the county to make that something that clarifies that, yes, there is continuity between Lyons property and the road,
Yes,
so that there's access.
yeah, that's,
Now, beyond that, whether it's controlled access or something, that's another discussion at another time.
yeah, it's correct to address that. I am loosely working on attempting an annexation of that portion of County Road 69 to assist with both avoiding the property to the south, which is owned by the Darcy family, and the trespassing that has traditionally taken place to, as you leave Bone Park, take the social trails through the Martin parcel and eventually make your way to County Road 69. That last southwest corner of the Martin parcel, people trespass. It's not fenced. And the Darcy family really is trying to discourage people from doing so, but doesn't want to put forth much effort to do that. And really the onus is on us to prevent people from trespassing onto their land, because we do own this property. They're not asking for, this property to be used recreationally, but we do. So I've spoken with Parks Director Cosgrove, and there's thought being put into a segment of fence to keep people from trespassing there. And it would also provide a real maintenance and emergency wildfire access to the Martin parcel from County Road 69, because it's the only real road. If you access it through Bone Park, you're on our trail system. And trucks do that, they'll pull onto the trails that are on the west side and the north side of Bone Park to perform maintenance, including the tree cutting that's happening now. But it would be ideal if we had a gated proper access off of County Road 69. So I'm working toward that a bit. And it would involve Boulder County Essentially, and they're okay with that as well, by the way. I've spoken with Boulder County, road division or some, whatever it might be. And they're fine with us annexing that. I think they have to vacate the road for us to annex it, and they vacate it and we turn it into, we want to keep it County Road 69, we can, or we can name it something pithy. But that's, there's an opportunity there for us to use that piece of right of way.
Has there been consideration of, for example, a little picnic area or two in the Martin parcel?
There has been consideration, and it was again something Director Cosgrove mentioned in kind of in a passing conversation that we might, consider something like that in the future. There's not monies budgeted for it right now. Right now, the primary focus will be taking the social trail that runs along kind of the northern portion of it and turning that into crusher fine path.
There was one design element in the Dr. Bob map that had a dry or low river or stone crossing. We referenced those before, I think, with the Evans property, for instance, and a few other things that would connect the social trails to what would be a formal trail to the Labyrinth, which has some real merit in it, just to connect the things, and to create more connectivity through our open space. I think that one we're considering dusting off when there's funding.
Okay.
That's just like 4 or 5 boulders in the river.
Yeah, that like on low water time of the year you could utilize.
Yeah, and I think you might actually need that annexation of the road. The road goes on to the river, right?
Yeah, it goes all the way to the, actually, it goes all the way to Highway 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
In theory, it connects with Highway 7.
Theory.
Which is, part of
That's fun.
the connection to Hall Ranch. The idea of a trail that would, a bridge that would cross the river and connect to the Hall Ranch access that's currently blocked.
Well, the county shut.
They did. That doesn't mean it can't be brought up again.
There was a
and I know,
municipal influence area.
yeah, it's true. There are definitely people who would like that to be something that we had influence over.
And then another comment, well, I don't know, I'm taking a lot of airspace here, but another comment on that Crusher Pines path. I don't know if we have any standards for our trail design, but it does seem like we should, strive to have accessible paths when possible. So of a certain width that you could push a wheelchair through and would be able to navigate safely. Most of our parks do have that, but it'd be good to at least bring that up. Oh, no, I was just gonna add, sorry, just things popped in my head. It's also because we don't really have a proper accessible path to the Boulder County open space for the so it would be, again, kind of this like public service of offering accessibility to people who otherwise would have to go on Highway 7.
The questions about the Martin Pro.
I think the name County Road 69 is pithy enough.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to our ADU overlay zoning district discussion.
Okay.
And start with the staff report.
Yeah, I'll share my screen so our audience of none can take a look. All right. So then you see it. No, you see a old picture of some town. Let's move this. What's really interesting is when I'm sharing my screen, I have to switch it back and forth each time. All right. So, yeah, thank you, Chair Drysdale. Can everyone see that? I can zoom in a little bit.
Cover your left eye.
They're live.
So I won't read through this entire document. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a look at it. But we have a proposal from the owner of 314 Main Street. To build, would like to build an accessory dwelling unit on his property, ideally. That's the C zoning district. Currently in the C zoning district, accessory dwelling units are not permissible. Short-term rentals are, but not accessory dwelling units.
Not even conditionally.
Not even conditionally. Yeah, accessory dwelling units are allowed in residential zoning districts. As of, and it's understandable, when the code for ADUs was written, that ADUs and commercial zoning districts don't naturally go together, because you think of a commercial area and you think, oh, that's like the Lions Dairy Bar. And yeah, you're not going to have an accessory dwelling unit there. But if you can envision what the north half of Main Street, the 300 block, is like, it's a lot of houses. Several houses, I should say. There's also a church and there's a hotel, but there's also several houses, and those houses were built as residences that have become commercial houses. That doesn't take away from kind of their appearance and their potential use to assist with affordable housing. So the owner of 314 Main feels that an accessory dwelling unit would be proper and good for his property. It's not allowed. There's another block, the 400 block of High Street on the north side, again, the north half, which is zoned commercial downtown. So two different zoning districts. Main Street is C, commercial. High Street is CD. Again, that north half of the 400 block of High, there's several houses. And we already know there's accessory dwelling units on some of those houses. Whether or not they're allowed is another question. But
High Street.
they're, yeah, the 400 block of. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, that is the best, yeah.
And
And there's a congregational church on that.
there's been
Yeah,
some other
yeah,
houses.
Stone Cup, well,
So there's been a thought came to mind when Administrator Simonson and I were discussing 314 Main, that what if we employed an overlay zoning district for those two blocks, those two half blocks, that would allow for conditional use permit for detached accessory dwelling units. Accessory dwelling units right now are a conditional use permit if they're detached in any zone. So this would again be a conditional use process whereby that would give some discretion to staff, it would give discretion to PCDC and the Board of Trustees. Does this really fit what we're looking for? And I would argue that 314 Main does fit that. So if we were to make that change, that's my recommendation, is that we do modify the code to allow for accessory dwelling units in these places. I support that, staff supports that generally. I have a couple other images that I can put up on the screen. So if you take a look at this, this is a map of those two half blocks. So this is the 300 block Main.
That's the overlay district.
Yeah, this is the overlay district in red. This is the 300 block of Main. This is the 400 block of High. And this blue outline is 314 Main. In Main specifically, you might be able to picture this. It's there's a sign that says Shambhala LLC. It's like a in the back, there is an existing garage, a very small garage, that the owner could turn into a detached STR and improve it as a, bring it up to 2021 building code, and it could be an STR. However, to do so brings up something that I didn't realize, and that Utilities Director Kaplan mentioned. The owner will have to acquire water share, will have to have separate water, separate sewer and separate electricity, which takes away from affordability. As an ADU, they can tap into their existing water, sewer, and electric, just like in other zoning districts where ADUs are allowed. So there's a big difference for this particular landowner between an STR, which doesn't necessarily help with our affordable housing crisis, though does provide short-term rental opportunities for this owner, and if we were to permit an ADU. Yeah, so.
You go first.
So just to be clear, we're talking about an ADU, which I realize there's utility fees and things associated, but excluding that for a second. The difference between an ADU and just a space as a STR is that an ADU would have a kitchen and a full bathroom. So it's a full dwelling unit separate.
Yes,
Whereas an STR could be a place where somebody could sleep and eat and bathe and use the bathroom, but it's not, doesn't have a kitchen, basically, is the only difference.
that is correct.
And you can't license it as an STR, as a short-term rental, unless he gets separate utilities for it. That's the way it'll be licensed.
That's correct.
Okay, so there's, yeah, okay.
You know, it's right across from elementary school, the backside. Are there, I always thought, you know, because I would want to drop my daughter up in the morning. There are private, I thought there were some. I know there was.
Yeah, that's actually a great point you bring up.
Yeah.
So this is a likely ADU.
Yeah, okay,
itself.
yeah.
And there might even be a couple of small ADUs on this parcel here. It's amazing.
You know, the one, the two.
Amazing what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's problematic, along with
Yeah, that one too, yeah,
Right
thank you,
here.
yeah.
their access from High Street.
Yeah, exactly, okay.
So
Yeah,
this-
so it's kind of like, okay,
yeah,
Okay.
so this, this block of High is, it is the access and it's one way to the elementary school, but it is also essentially the alley for these properties. So it's a dual purpose right away, and it's kind of unfortunate that it became a half block that's been somewhat neglected, but it does present some opportunities for us for densification that I think makes sense. Yeah.
So how much? Is overlay zoning for these two areas, if it's like kind of filling in the hole of a donut? Or like how much of the donut hole is still left that's not covered?
It's a good question. Yeah. There's
They might are available.
Yeah.
That thinking. It seems so odd. Should it be bigger for some reason right now?
Isn't the overlay district covering all of downtown?
We
All
like
downtown?
rectangles.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Great questions. And the rationale is that this portion of the commercial downtown, so this is the 400 block of Main Street, doesn't have traditional housing units. Now, you can build residences on the second story of buildings on Main Street. And High Street, and any of these in the commercial downtown district. But these are somewhat unique in the sense that they are, this being C zone, this being CD zone, that a few of these houses present like typical residential format, even though they're commercial properties. So trying to possibly increase our ability to utilize these for long-term housing.
Hang up here is that, yes, these are residential looking buildings.
Yeah,
They appear to be residences. Should we treat them like residences as if they were in another zoning? Is a really interesting question. We don't have historic preservation protection for any of these structures. So right now, someone could buy that and turn it into a maximum commercial building. And then we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious, like, why we would do this to benefit commercial properties that probably shouldn't be considered residential properties at all. I mean, they are, but they're not really. Like, so I'm guessing the reason this guy wants an ADU in the back is so he can rent the front unit and the back unit or maybe live in the back and rent the front. I don't know, but it's about revenue generation. This isn't somebody trying to like create livable square footage for a primary homeowner's purposes.
Mhm.
Not to say that that should affect our decision, because I don't
Yeah.
know if it should. But I don't like the precedent of doing residential things in commercial zoning, because I think there's a reason why the zones exist. So that's my only hang up here, but I don't usually like to be counter to staff, because I feel like staff usually understands the problem way better
I
than the
would,
volunteer commission does, just speaking from my own,
Yeah.
my own perspective.
I would counter that, Commissioner Everett,
Stop.
with this, by permitting an accessory dwelling unit here, we're enabling the longevity of this property. It might not be this fair. Yeah, it might not be this way forever. This might be knocked down and turned into just what you said. But if we want to keep the kind of spirit of what this property is, this assists this landowner in doing so and not losing that piece of historic building infrastructure.
Does this landowner also want 2 short-term rentals on the same property?
One short-term rental. There's
All right.
one short-term rental and potentially a second short-term rental,
That's one, right.
right? Or an accessory dwelling unit.
So my in-laws will be staying there in July in the front house, renting it for a week. Which has nothing to do with this discussion, but it's not a homeowner living on a single family property. So it's a commercial property. It's a small motel, maybe, if you want to look at it that
Yeah,
way.
to say, it looks like it's called the Lions Main Inn and the,
What we're talking about is we're circumventing short-term rental licensing requirements is what this is about. But agree with you in spirit, it also, as an ADU, could be long-term rented only, doubtful, but it could be, and that would provide housing stock for the town, and that could be really good. So if we had assurances that this would only have 1 short-term rental license and not 2, then I would be more apt to be fine with calling it an ADU, because then the only way it could be rented was a long-term rental, and then it would actually be part of our housing stock.
Well, currently, according to the ADU code, it could only be created as.
That is correct.
Which
Good point.
we
Talking
talk about, but for now.
And that will likely be struck from the code, because it makes no sense in most residential properties, which we're not talking about. So anyway, I guess we're kind of in a weird debate about what's the spirit of this decision, and I think it's revenue generation, it's hotel room.
Certainly. Now, this is the principal residence of the landowner.
but it's a, because
He has to reside here. To have a short-term rental, he has to reside here for 9 months out of the year. So,
he just,
well,
the mailing is,
yeah, the enforcement of that is challenging.
well, his mailing address is a PO box in Lyons, but that doesn't necessarily.
That doesn't-
So-
Yeah, it doesn't, but yeah, but in addition to his physical address.
So that's a good point. This is recorded, it's public, like,
Yeah.
that should be acknowledged, that is a primary
Yeah.
residence.
This is his primary residence. He also has a business office here.
Right.
And he has a short-term rental in the house. The back, the garage that's on High Street would right now be turned into an additional short-term rental if it's brought up to code. Potentially it could be turned into an accessory dwelling unit if we create the ability to do so.
So could an overlay, sorry, I'm teaching out here.
No, sorry.
Could the overlay district have a requirement that no more than 1 short-term rental license is allowed on the property?
Yeah,
Because then that would just alleviate turning all these into like little micro hotels.
yes. Oh, yeah, that would, if he had. If we look, here is High Street.
I think that's the current code anyway. I think you can only have 1 short-term rental license per property.
But I think there's a problem with,
But with the mini hotel,
no, there's a problem with that zoning, isn't it? Because it came up before talking about multiple short-term rentals on one property. It doesn't say you can't.
It doesn't say you cannot, right? And so we were, yeah, we felt comfortable entertaining 2 short-term rentals, 1 detached, 1 within the house.
Yeah, he's not probably doing this in the way that I'm thinking that he's trying. It seems like innocent and like, because right now you can't, you're right, you can't have an ADU be a short-term rental, a detached ADU be a short-term rental. So he doesn't know that we're probably going to try to get rid of that specific language in the code, or at least discuss it, getting rid of it. So, but as soon as that happens, that will become 2 short-term rentals. That would make the most sense for the property, right? So if we have an overlay district that says,
No, not 2 short-term rentals, an accessory dwelling unit.
currently right now, an ADU cannot be a short-term rental, but
correct?
chances are in 6 months, that might not be the case.
It's possible, but his goal is to have this be an accessory dwelling unit. He would like this to be an accessory dwelling unit, not a short-term rental.
A lot cheaper.
Yeah.
It's very
You don't have to-
tiny. I've been
You
in it.
don't have to,
Oh, right.
was up for sale. I heard it.
I forget about the hookups.
Like-
Yeah.
that's a lot of money.
That's 80K.
Is that what the financial burden is? 80K?
No, just
For
for
water
share.
share, for water share, yeah, that's like, it's like,
580.
yeah, it was around, okay.
Never mind. Okay.
Now, if he did an ADU and promised to keep it affordable for 30, or 30% of AMI or something like that, it's possible he could get a cheaper watershed.
But he would still have to acquire water share and a entirely separate water line, an entirely separate sewer line, and a water tap fee and a sewer tap fee.
Still pretty.
And
So
a
right
water-
now, it's just
So
it's just-
So I actually, a question, level right above this. Why would we not allow ADUs on any property that could accommodate it? As long as we keep the change of use review so that commercial properties couldn't turn into residential properties without review.
That's a possibility for sure, Chair Dressa. Yeah, we could just, we could change the zoning code in that format. So it wouldn't be an overlay district. You're just saying comprehensively across lines. A detached ADU would be allowed in any zoning district under a conditional use review process.
Right, and remembering that if it's a commercial property, if the commercial element of it wants to change its use to residential, then it would need to go through conditional review. Right?
any change of use is a conditional review in a commercial district.
Any change of use is. No, that is a change of use is a building permit. Issue, not a land use decision.
Right, but some of them are conditional, some of them are prime, I forget the number of those. So if a commercial district wanted to change to a residential district, there wouldn't be a conditional review, right? But Barney's saying because there's an ADU present, it would trigger one.
Well, saying that the ADU would be conditional review, what I'm looking for is we would need to make sure that we don't turn the downtown into a residential area.
Yeah,
That people do things by right, and all of a sudden we don't have a downtown, we have no commercial establishments
All
downtown,
right,
and we get no sales tax, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we would still get sales tax, but we would decrease it considerably. So if you could prevent the commercial properties just flipping over to the ADUs or STRs or whatever, then it would seem, and I'm being influenced incidentally by that Washington Post article. It said ADUs really have helped Los Angeles
Yeah.
considerably. And so it's like limitations on ADU seem to be counterproductive. Unless there's some really, substantial reason for it. Or limiting their ability to be placed throughout town. In fact, having ADUs in the downtown area would put people who live in them close to the public transit.
Yeah,
And so they wouldn't need a car, that sort of thing. Yeah,
walking to the store.
yeah, they could walk to the store, they could get on a bus, and to me, it's worth considering having the ADUs be possible in any district. With conditional review, we may need to look back at the conditional review criteria to make sure that we don't incent, things that we didn't anticipate. easily.
Okay, it's a fair point. I've highlighted the standards that demonstrate the districts where ADUs are allowed currently. So,
I have to read it.
yeah, so they're allowed in R1, R2, R2A, E, which is a state, EC, which is a state country, and A residential districts. We don't have a lot of E or EC, but
So then they're prohibited where?
they are prohibited in C, CD, B, CEC. Commercial
Business.
Eastern Core, yeah.
There's only 2 properties.
There's only 2 properties in business.
One of them's the Bud Hut, if you recall.
Yeah,
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
you can't put an ADU there because it's in the floodplain.
also R3 is not included. R3. Highest density residential building district, yeah. So this would essentially enable it, the change that you're proposing would enable it in a couple of more zoning districts. Because there's really not that many that don't allow it. If we look at the zoning map. That's it. Okay. So the commercial district is this north half of the 300 block of Main. And this area of East Main and fire station. It's such a mess.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
This on the south side of Main, the north, and the 400 block, and then this north of the 400 block on 5. There's also commercial zoning here.
so we're the auto, no,
Yeah, this is vintage auto.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, a benefit parcel. That is right for a whole bunch of different things.
He was making calls a couple years ago to people,
Some things,
just so you know.
great things could happen here. It's a highlight as you travel west on Main.
yeah. it's definitely-
Also, these parcels are zoned commercial on West Main.
But the,
And there are a couple of houses here. Then you have,
river bend up there.
don't have houses, and
Yeah.
the CEC zoning district does not allow.
A bunch of ADUs across that strip of,
Yeah.
strip old, all the way.
Triple K ADU. So,
It's gonna tell the story, yeah.
especially ADU in an unused underground storage tank. So. Right with
Yeah, there's
volatile
a,
compound.
there was an old gas station up in Moxie, whatever. There's
see that
underground storage tank there.
little red triangle and then each ship in the cul-de-sac community, is that place called?
Oh, yeah.
That's the other business property.
Yeah, this one here.
Yeah,
That's the,
yeah, that's what
what
we have.
kind of extension.
The only other business property in town besides Mud Hut.
Bees.
Oh,
Yeah, they winter, oh, gosh,
That's great.
Also, the general industrial parcels don't allow.
We should allow them there. They're right there in their residential communities. So it's good with ADUs.
and people to get access to well, people from the street, but.
I would say this, so, I brought this up tonight to entertain the idea, this obviously is a hearing to entertain a zoning change. But if I could get some thoughts, yeah,
Yeah.
what to take away, how to best proceed, that would be great. And then this would come before the PCDC again in the form of a zoning amendment.
So what was the recommendation of, there is no really recommendation here, but
Staff recommendation is the overlay zoning district.
Oh, really? Got it.
Yeah, for those 2 half blocks.
So one alternative would be to take this as sort of step one. And then the second step would be exploration of the ability to do ADUs in more, if not all, zoning districts. Sense.
I would rather just do straight to your concept than do the overlay, unless you think there's like a political reason for doing the overlay first.
Well, it's not so much political as it is process in that staff has spent time thinking about this and exploring it. And I suspect they're prepared to move forward, you know, and have already sort of shaken it out fairly well.
That's a fair point, though, I could, I will have a discussion after tonight with Administrator Simonson, and it could go either way. I could gauge her thought about that novel approach of why not ADUs as a conditional use everywhere? Because it's still a conditional use and would go through some serious
Right.
review.
And with some language somewhere that would virtually prevent commercial from flipping the commercial portion of their property to residential without approval.
You have to make like residential a conditional use of a commercial zoning to do that.
Yeah, and it's probably not even not permitted at all now.
Yeah, that would be, you get into a spot zoning situation if someone came to us.
McCain's property, it was zoned commercial, which was arguably more valuable because of its residential potential, and then he changed it to industrial, which made it less valuable, but allowed him to keep his business running. Remember that being kind of the hinge point of that argument.
Well, not among the PCDC.
That's fair, yeah.
And
Anyway.
the appropriate authority did what they are enabled to do.
That's right. That was.
Even if it was wrong. So I guess I'm in support of this. I do think some of the concerns that were brought up, losing the historical nature of some of these. So by having conditional use process in there, then hopefully we can avoid having, things happen we don't want to. The other, on a different note though, as we're talking about our ADUs, are the 3 main HOAs in town preclude ADUs? And I assume the legislation that Paul was pushing was gonna take care of that, correct?
Yeah.
Which is now in DOA.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a different discussion, but I think that's the biggest bang for the buck discussion.
Took another swing at HOAs this week, actually, with landscaping. Where it's HOAs. It doesn't matter, it's off topic, but Commissioner Sports Center.
Thank you. I was just thinking in terms of the urgency that you feel around this decision. It seems like in the next couple of months, we'll have some more information for housing study and subcommittee on the short term, long term. We might just have, I don't know how urgent you feel that
Right.
needs to happen, but
I would say it's a fair point. I would say that it's, you say.
Good one's the next one.
Say, there is urgency behind this.
Okay.
It's not an emergency, but there's urgency behind it. What in the end, the consultant will say is you need more ADU availability. So we already know that. This would potentially take care of, we had an overlay zone, would take care of 2 half blocks. If we changed around the zoning code altogether, that would potentially take care of the whole town. there's nothing stating that we couldn't take, we couldn't have an overlay district now, and then that could be, that could go away if we comprehensively change around ADUs later.
Which we talked, which we talked about doing. We talked about reconfiguring our residential zoning. So if we to get rid of that overlay, then
Yeah, it'd be plenty easy.
that's probably the right idea.
Yeah, and so I think you could take this discussion back to Administrator Simonson and others on staff to see if that makes sense. What the sense of the group here, if I'm reading it right, is that having availability of ADUs is a good thing. And if there's a way of doing it without creating unintended consequences, we should go for it. Is that fair?
Well said.
I will say, I do think the overlay district should include a limit to one short-term rental, even though it's 80 grand or ish to do all those utility hookups. That's only like $200 a night to a rather large rental property. So someone could absorb that in less than a year and come out on top with a short-term rental first.
Limited to properties could be limited to only one short-term rental and one ADU.
Only one short-term rental within that overlay district.
Only one short-term rental within that overlay.
Yeah, as part of that overlay district. So that would keep that, I mean, you guys consider it, like, let us know if it makes sense, but I think that would keep someone from turning it into a micro motel, which is a concern, I think.
Okay, are we satisfied with where we are with that?
Yes, there just might. Misunderstanding that would relate to this, which is revised definition of bed and breakfast. It seems to be a loophole for short-term rentals. They provide temporary accommodations to one or more booking parties at the same time for a fee. They may serve one meal daily. A bed and breakfast shall not constitute or be regulated as a short-term rental. So it's just something to look at in case this could end up not working with the limit of the one short-term rental.
At one time there were two, but neither of them are functioning as such, at least at this time. In fact, I don't think the last 10 years. Okay, so do we want to move on to hearing about all the wonderful things the department is involved in?
You'd like to, for sure. Yeah, so I provided a list of, let me see if I can pull it up. Not it. That's it. Okay. A list of everything that's been going on last week of April through May 11th. Just as a kind of an occasional refresher of what the community development department engages itself in. And it's a lot. It's a heck of a lot. Yeah, there are so many different things that we have our sticky tendrils in trying to grasp a hold of. And they're fascinating. You know, the Martin parcel is an obvious one that will be coming to completion soon. But there's a lot of opportunities for the town to better itself, whether it be through grants or through just Lyons municipal code changes that I'm trying to bring myself aware of. And these speak to some of those. And then I guess just highlighting the different pieces of work that the done during this time period, whether it be STR applications or making maps, or talking with landowners, talking with other cities. Are there any specific points of this you wanted to discuss Chair Drystat. I don't want to read through the entire list. It's a
Right, I was thinking that it would
pretty
be
long litany of,
It's pretty,
yeah.
mostly about things that are imminent, especially that will be coming before the PCDC in the coming few months.
Yeah, there are a few. So I'll scroll down a little bit, but I do encourage you to look through this list in case you haven't had a chance to look through the list because there's exciting things. Like, I think I've said this to a few of you, every day of my job here is just fascinating because I get to explore so many different facets of planning. So there's a lot. Go down a bigger list. Yeah,
Can I ask questions about it?
yeah.
Unless it's
absolutely.
on there already, tell me, but
Yeah.
the one that stood out to me was a potential rezoning of the Riverbend property.
Yes,
Is that pertinent? You tell me. If not, we'll move on.
no, it's definitely pertinent. So two of the owners of the Riverbend property, Betsy and Mike, came in and had a meeting with Administrator Simonson and myself about the potential use of their property in the future. They are planning on retiring and moving on to other things and want to maximize the highest and best use of their very significant piece of land, of which they're part of the ownership, not the entirety of the ownership. So right now it's zoned R2. It is not a PUDC yet, even though that was the goal since 2017, I believe, was to turn it into a PUDC. But the Mylar has never been recorded. And that's been a sticky point for several years. There's a couple of long stories behind that, but it remains as zoned R2. Which maybe is a good zoning, but during that discussion, we talked about the potential for even R3 or PUDR. There's portions of the land that are in the floodway that cannot be built upon, but there's also portions in the 100-year floodplain and out of the floodplain that can be built upon. So there's nothing has been finalized. It was more just like, hey, we're interested in exploring the highest and best use for this land in the future. What are some avenues to do that with lines zoning? If we don't record this Mylar, or if we do record this Mylar, or would it be easier to transfer a PUDC, which is what was the intent back in 2017, to a PUDR? Does it not matter? And you would still need to go, in the end, you still have to go through a rezoning process. So having it be R2 or PUDC, if you wanted it to become PUDR, it's still a rezoning. So it's really neither here nor there. Anyway, that's, I guess, the short of that.
Is this the Wicasa plan?
This is Wicasa. Yeah. And there's ideas for, that we discussed with the owners about affordable housing, which they are keen on. They would like it to be affordable, attainable housing, whether that would be an ownership model or a rental model is not determined. And it's also, potentially going to be for sale. And so whoever would buy that, they might have different ideas altogether. So the current owners are just thinking about, well, what could we market this as?
It's in the flood.
Big portions of it are,
yes, yeah.
but portions of it are,
Speaking for rules, but
a few portions are not.
pretty developable.
There's also portions in the floodplain that are in the flood shadow, so they have a different developability because they are not directly impacted by floodwaters or not backwash because of filtration. Yeah.
Isn't there an interest in the town in extending the open space and parks potentially across the river?
There's
No, I could already tell by your reaction.
well, there there would be interest, but is there the financial wherewithal to do that, to acquire more parkland?
No, but if it came with the, the zoning change was important to the landowner, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe giving part of the undeveloped property back to the town to consider for something to be.
I talked about, it's a fair point, and I brought up all manner of ideas during this discussion, like, well, would this be multi-story residential? Would it be small lots? Like, and they just were like, yeah, maybe, we don't know. I also brought up the idea of, well, would we want a pedestrian connection to the Burn Johnson Park across the river? And that idea actually, they didn't like very much. And
That was a huge bone of contention back when, after the flood.
yeah,
They didn't, or
I would think it would be a
They
great
didn't, they didn't
amenity
want
for the
people to stand on this side of the river
Yeah,
and see weddings over there.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
It's like, I think though, it would be a great opportunity to connect whatever neighborhood would be there with the rest of town.
Yes.
Because right now, the only access is from the highway.
Yeah.
And if you had another access, I think that would be wise, but it wasn't super well received.
Doesn't the town also own upriver property that has no real use other than open space? Like way out like Apple Valley? I don't know.
The water treatment.
The water treatment plant?
Yeah, it just seems like, I don't know, there's potential for like develop recreation along the river that could lead to something someday.
Yeah,
But,
and there's also Boulder County owned parcels
right, yeah.
that are another component in
Landlocked
that.
parcels that are
Yeah, that
developable.
Boulder County would like us to annex.
Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
It would just be interesting to look at that river system as what is our plan? What do we think about it? But there's also like 100 other things we should be looking at, so.
There's a lot. No, but it's a good question. It was a interesting discussion.
Okay, anyway,
And that's it right now.
thank you. That stood out to me, so I was just curious.
Anyway, if you have questions following, if you hadn't had the chance to look at what's been going on, you can always ask me later, and I'd be happy to answer those questions.
I want to know when you're gonna stop slacking off.
I can't.
We don't know how little you do.
No, this is impressive. That's a
Great.
huge list of a wide variety of things. Thank you.
Sure thing, it's my pleasure. It's a lot of fun. We do have the next edition of a blood drive on June 29th, by the way, so bring in a phone for that. Going past that list of what's been afoot in the community development department. See, what else did I highlight? None of these are highlighted on those old ones. Here's 314 Main, which we talked to plenty tonight. The Broadway project is going to commence, which is great. It's actually going to happen. The St. Vrain Corridor Trail. There's a potential that the original idea will work of using the town's right of way on the former railroad. Good. Or not right of way, ownership, fee ownership of land that was the former railroad right of way. So stay tuned to that, but we might not have to do something entirely crazy to make this trail. Should be great. I have grant, which was already mentioned, the IGA discussions.
Question on IGA, has that been taken off our plate and taken to the Board of Trustees for immediate action? Is that allowed? Have questions around that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Vice Chair Evers. So, I spoke with Mayor Rogan via email, and she would like the input of the PCDC on IGA matters. I think there's going to be more knowledge to be had following our June 1st meeting with county staff. So that'll be our second meeting with county staff. So by the time we reconvene on June 12th, there was a mention during our agenda setting session last time that maybe on June 12th, we have a workshop on IGA. So potentially we could, or at least I'll have more to update, if not a workshop, I'll have more to update. And I do think the sentiment is that the PCDC's input is important to the Board of Trustees.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but not all IGAs have to be related to land use, but this particular IGA is land use related, right?
Yeah,
No, they're not, yeah, no,
So we should just call it the land use IGA, right?
it is the land. use.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
no, I don't.
Cause I was just curious, like when it was first brought up that maybe it would just stay in the Board of Trustees and not come down to us for feedback. I'm not intimately familiar with it. I do recall reading that, municipalities are required to have a planning commission, and there's a relationship between the planning commission and the mayor can actually serve on it. And this is a very small community, so it can just be a planner and the mayor basically, or staff and a mayor. And I was just wondering what the obligation is for the town of Lyons to use the PCDC for an IGA. So maybe it doesn't matter.
There's no obligation.
No obligation.
Yeah, no obligation at all. It could be entirely within the hands of staff discussing with the town of Lyons staff. Or negotiating everything with Boulder County staff, and then we present to the Board of Trustees, and the Board of Trustees approves, just like any other intergovernmental agreement.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and there's plenty of other examples of that for intergovernmental agreements. That's just staff level that it never makes it onto the radar of PCDC. This particular one though has relevance to this body because it is land use.
Well, the reason I bring it up is I think it's a good opportunity for us to, if we want, you don't have to, but we did kind of talk about after completing the comp plan, trying to use the comp plan as a guiding document for what we do as a PCDC. So, without stepping outside the boundaries of one member's opinion here, but like, I do think it's a good opportunity for us to go in with comp plan sort of in front of us to like guide us through that IGA discussion and how we want to influence the IGA or not influence, or what we think is our scope or not our scope. I think that could be an interesting way to frame it. For what it's worth.
Love that.
Yeah.
Just one other question.
Yeah.
Maybe you haven't gotten to it yet, Think Generator and now, along with them. Who is it that's working?
Trace birds.
Oh, Trace Birds, yeah.
Mhm.
Is there any possibility that a significant item will come before the PCDC as a result of their planning? Either in the Eastern Corridor or downtown?
Is there any possibility that a document will come? Yeah, a document will come before the PCDC?
That
Yeah,
there would be something coming before the PCDC for action.
that's the hope. Yeah.
Mixed use would.
Yeah, because as it stands right now, the parcels are zoned ag. So there would be a zoning change necessary, if nothing else. And what staff has encouraged Trace Birds and Think Generator is to go for a PUD mixed use. Possibly a PUD industrial, but PUD mixed use makes more sense.
Yeah.
Even though they do want a light industrial component to whatever does occur there. And this, by the way, is.
Are we talking about this in context of the next 8 months or 9 months?
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope so.
If so, then I think well in advance of it, I think we should get a little kind of an overview of what the likelihoods are, what the scope is. So that we're able to frame it, and when it comes to a vote, we're well informed and up to date, and because it's not going to be simple.
No. Yeah, that's a great one.
And have another field trip over there. Which was helpful when Paul and they showed us what, some of the concepts.
Yeah, there's very few architecture firms in the state that I think are very exciting, and Trace Birds is one of them. They're really do really cool work. They're also a general contractor. I don't know if they'll be doing that in this project, but they're a design build firm. And it's kind of allowed them to do some really interesting things in Denver.
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. Generator does have, of course, the hot potato on their plate that they didn't want to have, which was 402 Main. So that has taken some of their preferred bandwidth away.
Of the fire property.
Yeah. Yeah. They have to grapple with that, which is an opportunity in itself, but not one that they expected.
Is there anything that with that property that we may,
I hope so. Yeah, I have not heard anything on that. The big thing is the asbestos abatement, which that is supposed to happen relatively soon. And it'll be an unusual asbestos abatement where they wet everything down because there's enough of it and kind of suck everything out and truck it away.
Sounds super expensive.
Yeah, very expensive.
I don't do that.
Yeah, as opposed to a dry abatement, which is more normal.
It's still
By the way,
expensive.
This is a side thing. Did we make a bad decision by suggesting that, CMX was going to close that pipe, the brain, whatever the pipe across the.
The conveyor.
Yeah, and now all those trucks go on 66 into the property and,
So a lot of trucking right now.
yeah, I don't know,
For sure.
I'm working to get it shut down, so.
yeah, Boulder County, no, open space, Boulder County, this was very, fully, they certainly had their agenda, I felt the same way. And, they're not about to meet CDOT's road, they have to maintain the roadway and this. That's a perfect.
other highlights?
Is there any news on the U pumper?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen some activity there.
Yeah, I have not heard any news. I have been doing some research with OPS, the Office of Oil and Public Safety, the Division of Oil and Public Safety with state of Colorado on U Pump It and on Circle K to just see if there's any contamination going on, what there is. There is has been historic releases. And so we have that documentation and I obtained it at least. And so we're kind of going through that documentation to understand get a better picture of what remediation is taking place and what effects that has on the reuse of these properties of both U Pump and Circle K.
There was one property from the annex joint meeting that was. It's close to Egatal, like across the street, and it's like a piece of county property that's just sort of an island floating into the town.
Yeah.
And Jocelyn brought it up.
Mhm.
And I thought that was maybe one of the more interesting ones that we talked about during the meeting, because it did seem like kind of an easy one to annex so that we had some control or some say over what the zoning of that would be.
Yeah.
So it doesn't turn into something that maybe we don't want it to be. And then
Right.
Jocelyn brought it because it looked like maybe there was some cleanup going on the side or something. I was just curious if staff has followed up at all on that recommendation since that meeting or has a thought on that property.
Yeah, well, we do have the thought that there's two enclaves, if I.
Yeah, that's a good term.
Two enclaves that need to be annexed in our lines, and one is that one that you referred to, Vice Chair.
Is there a name for it or we just
Um,
Enclave East?
this is the enclave east owned by, Tracy and Lauren McConnell. So this is one
Oh, that's Silver's sister.
that has
A lot of street front.
a lot of street front. It's not, super developable and it's cut by the ditch here. But there's a little bit of opportunity and it would be good to clean this up into clean up our
It's
boundaries.
sandwiched by two businesses.
It is. Yep.
Now, to say I guess maybe the town is different, but in some special districts, the town is, it's not special district, but you can't have enclaves if you're completely surrounded by. So we can't have donor pools, but I guess this is,
Well, it's not, we can't control the zoning. I think that's what's most interesting to us is if someone tried to develop it and it is at all developable.
Yeah,
If it was at least zoned
yeah, no,
in part of our town, we could at least have a conditional say what the use.
Yeah.
That's right. And the annexation process is a lighter process because it is an enclave. So
yeah.
there doesn't have to be a petition. We can directly annex it.
The reason I'm bringing it up is I just didn't want it to
Really think of-
float away into ether. I was just curious. I know you guys have a lot on your plate, but is that still on the plate?
There.
I would,
Yeah.
it's like
It's
hanging
not
out
being
with
forced.
the peas.
Yeah. It's been broccolified.
At one time, the proposal for that property was a tiny home village.
Yes. Yeah, I heard.
That enclave there, that one?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and so there was a little road that went up there and I can't remember if it connected to Stone Canyon.
Yeah, Nolan Drive.
And so there was just a little spur road, tiny homes.
I mean, the venue next door.
It would be easier to do that on that kind of property.
And that also brings up, that's something else I wanted to, at some point, it doesn't have to be today, but like there, if we're adopting a 2021 IRC, there is an appendix specifically for tiny home construction, permanent tiny home construction. It might be worth considering whether we adopt that appendix. As part of the two, I know that's happening right now with staff. We're reviewing that through some email exchanges, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I don't know what appendix that is. It was appendix Q in the past.
Might still be, I don't know. I know that Boulder County allowed residents and developers to use that, even though the 2021 code wasn't adopted. They adopted it into the 2018, which they had at the time. I think they still have 2018. But it's kind of nice because it allows different like code compliancy for stairs, and it has a lot of language around what it means to structurally anchor the thing and utilities and all that. So I think it'd be really applicable to us if we have that tiny home code. And there's a possibility we might roll that into the STR discussion too. Who knows?
Yeah.
No.
Well, it says in there you can't have a VIN number, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
a tiny home that meets the 2021 appendix code is not necessarily in the spirit of that code. So
Yeah,
that's something to consider.
yeah. No, it's a great point. This is the other enclave parcel, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. James Van Court, on the west side, so we have the west side.
Where's that again? Or is that the Eagle? No.
It's like some motion.
A weird corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Between Okan and
Yeah, right.
It's like that single family home back there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So there's an industrial property, a single family home, and a business all next door to each other.
all of it.
Really weird.
We got it all.
It's like a little community. It's like a whole town.
What we should do is just,
Incorporate it.
yeah. Little zip
New
lines.
lines.
Build a water park. Think how steep this is.
It's probably a sign we should call me.
Yeah,
so do you have any other highlights or?
not really.
Where's the lights?
Nothing else, low lights, there's always those, yeah, and there's even no lights for the dark skies application.
See that?
Oh.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a motion to adjourn?
So no. So then.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Great, excellent discussion. Thanks, everybody.